Today, we will dive deep into one of the most debated issues of our time, interrogating globalization. We won't just define it, we'll question it. We'll ask, is globalization truly sustainable, just, and fair for all? Globalization refers to the big changes in the 20th century that affect people, communities, and entire countries. It's not just about economics or trade, it's also about our daily lives and culture. Think about it. Online shopping from other countries. Watching Korean dramas or Hollywood movies. Eating at McDonald's or buying from global brands like Nike and Uniqlo. These are everyday examples of globalization. As Bartleson explained in 2000, it's really about exchanges across boundaries, making countries increasingly connected. Globalization happens through trade, financial flows, and migration, with the goal of creating a global marketplace. But globalization also comes with a certain paradigm of development. As Pongsapich noted in 2003, it promotes a growth-first model, where success is judged mainly by economic growth, usually measured by gross domestic product, GDP. Here's the problem: GDP doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't measure inequality. It doesn't reflect environmental destruction. And it doesn't show whether people are truly happy or if wealth is fairly shared. So while globalization assumes that economic integration leads to rapid growth and development, the reality is often more complicated. Globalization involves major flows across borders. Let's break them down. 1. Global trading, goods. Countries import and export products. Trade in manufactured goods has grown rapidly since the 1970s. But exports of raw materials and food from poorer countries have actually declined. 2. Capital flows, money. This includes loans, aid, and foreign direct investments. Transnational corporations, or TNCs, play a huge role in this. Think Apple, Toyota, or Nestle. 3. Movement of people, migration. Millions migrate for better opportunities. For example, in 2018, the Philippines had 2.3 million overseas Filipino workers. Globalization doesn't just affect money and markets. It also transforms culture and politics. First, let's look at cultural globalization. This is the spread of music, fashion, food, and media across borders. Think of K-pop concerts filling stadiums worldwide, Hollywood movies dominating cinemas, fast food chains on every corner, and viral memes that everyone seems to know, no matter where they live. These create a sense of shared culture. But there's a warning here. UNESCO reminds us that while cultural globalization promotes integration and exchange, it can also erase local identities. When global products dominate, smaller local traditions and languages can be pushed aside. Second, we have political globalization. This refers to the growing influence of international systems and institutions like the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. These bodies don't just assist countries, they also shape global rules on trade, the environment, security, and even human rights. In effect, governance now extends beyond the nation-state, meaning countries are increasingly tied to global agreements and policies. So, when we study globalization, it's not only about economics. It's also about how we live, what we value, and who makes decisions that affect us. Globalization is built on certain assumptions, but critics challenge them. First, there's the idea that rapid economic growth automatically means development. But critics argue that real development is more than just numbers and GDP growth, it should also mean equity, justice, and people's welfare. Growth without fairness often leaves many behind. Second, we often hear that free trade benefits everyone. In theory, yes, but in reality, richer nations tend to gain more while poorer nations are left vulnerable. The benefits are not equally shared. Third, the assumption is that loans help poor countries develop. But when we look deeper, many of these loans come with conditions, like the structural adjustment programs of the IMF and World Bank. These programs often forced countries to cut social services, in effect, making them more dependent rather than self-reliant. Finally, the belief that removing tariffs creates fairness. Let's look at our own case in the Philippines. When tariffs were cut in industries like textiles and footwear, instead of creating opportunities, it destroyed local industries. Thousands lost jobs, and our capacity to compete weakened. So, when we interrogate globalization, we see that it's not neutral. Globalization creates winners and losers. Supporters claim it creates jobs, reduces poverty, and raises income. Critics argue it deepens inequality, harms the environment, and weakens local communities. For example, local farmers in the Philippines cannot compete with cheap, subsidized imports from wealthier countries. This leads to farmer displacement, industry collapse, and greater inequality. As Kavanaugh and Mander warned in 2004, globalization has not ended poverty. Instead, it widened the gap between rich and poor, eroded democracy, and displaced communities. But, it doesn't have to be this way. The criticisms of globalization don't mean we should reject global connections altogether, it means we need alternatives that work better for people. One alternative is to push for fairer trade, not trade that favors only the powerful, but trade that ensures producers, especially in developing countries, get just prices and real benefits. Second, there's sustainable development. Growth is meaningless if it destroys the environment or leaves future generations with nothing. True development considers long-term ecological balance. Third, social justice. Globalization should not widen inequality, instead, it should protect the rights and dignity of workers, migrants, and marginalized groups. And finally, strengthening local economies. Relying too heavily on global markets makes countries vulnerable. By supporting local industries, agriculture, and small businesses, communities can be more resilient and self-reliant. So, globalization may connect us, but the challenge is, can we build a kind of globalization that uplifts people and communities, not just corporations and profits? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As we interrogate globalization, remember this. It's not just about goods, money, or culture, it's about power, inequality, and fairness. Globalization connects us, but whether it uplifts us all depends on the choices societies make. In our next lesson, we'll explore the extent of globalization, how connected we really are with the world, and how we measure that global connectivity. That's it for today's lesson. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next one. This is Social Studies Simplified, where we understand the past, engage the present, and shape the